Hey everyone, I got to pick up Hanno from Germany, picked him up in Orange County and gave him a ride to deeper into Orange County near the coast to Newport Beach. We had a chance to talk about some conspiracies like 9/11. I also asked him a few questions about World War II and about the Holocaust and about what they're taught over there about the Holocaust and about the gas chambers, and if he ever had a chance to go visit any of the gas chambers. The talking about flat Earth starts at about 15 minutes, 30 seconds into the video. We were talking about 9/11, about World War II, and about a couple other things before I actually hit him with 9/11. I was just basically feeling him out and seeing where he stood as far as how open-minded he was. And I felt that he could handle a conversation about us talking about possibly being lied to about the ground that we're standing on. I hope you enjoy listening to the video as much as I enjoyed having the conversation with Hanno. He was truly a nice gentleman to talk to. I hope him and his family are doing great over in Arizona, and I hope that he is looking into a few of the things that we talked about. If you enjoyed the video, please feel free to like the video, comment on the video, share it if you think that some of the information or maybe the way that I approached Hanno can help somebody else. Please feel free to share it. If you want to mirror the video, go for it. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button so that you get notified whenever I put anything new out. And if you'd like to keep up with the videos and audio clips that I post, to everyone who already has subscribed and the people that have gotten a hold of me and called me, because I do post my email address and my phone number at the bottom of every video. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure talking to you guys. I look forward to anybody else who takes the time to get a hold of me to have a conversation. Once again, thank you so much for watching the video, and talk to you guys later.
Hey, how you doing?
Hello. For Hanno, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Alrighty, boss. Just making sure I got the right person getting in my car.
Absolutely. How's your night going?
Kind of just starting, man.
Okay.
And you're headed off to the beach.
I am.
Oh, you know what? I can't find the seatbelt, can you?
I can't, no.
Here, let me fix that for you really quick, dude. I'm so sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. I was just wondering, is it me? Do you want to get out?
I drive for, I have to pull this down.
Yeah.
This is having me go out. So how's your night though, man?
Yeah, not bad. We just had a business meeting here, so a couple of drinks, a lot of talking.
That usually seems to go hand in hand.
True.
Drinking and business. What's up with that? Unless your business is drinking, then you might have a problem.
That would be nice. Yeah, I would like that. spending a couple of days here. I got business meetings in LA and here, and then in Carlsbad and San Diego. So I actually got the wife and the little one here as well. So they're at Huntington Beach.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Kind of, if you got to do business, at least make it like some kind of family.
Yeah.
Right.
We live in Arizona, and my wife is just crazy about getting out of the heat. So breaks my heart to see the little one, how much she enjoys being here. Like I love Arizona, but for the little one, it's like, oh wow, the sea, and there's a cool breeze, and you can run outside during the day.
Yeah.
So you from here, or?
Yeah, born and raised Southern California, boss. You sound like you're from another country at some point.
Yeah, I'm still working on my Arizona accent, so I'm from Germany originally.
That's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say like Germany or Denmark or some
That's what I
some
usually
kind of
get,
like European. At least you don't get like French or something like that. That'd be
No,
horrible.
exactly.
That'd be horrible. I find it interesting though, because well, I would actually like to talk to more German people, just because I've started looking into things and I have some questions about stuff now. Like, as far as like World War II with Germany, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like the Holocaust and all that. What to be dead honest, dude, I really do not think it happened the way that the average school child is taught. Have you ever had a chance to go check out the actual concentration camps and stuff?
Yeah, no, not really, no.
No?
I mean, my hometown had a small concentration camp, and when you speak or when you look at the records, what the population said about the camp, it's all like, oh, we didn't know what was going on, and oh yeah, maybe, or whatever. So it's very difficult to get accurate records of what really happened, because everyone was kind of in denial. And so as far as the camps are concerned, I really don't know.
Well, because like, alright, I'll give you something that really brings up a question to me. Because, like, I've seen the videos now where, over the last, like, 20, 30 years or so, when they go to, like, execute someone, like, with gas, right? Like a gas chamber. Those are very highly enforced, you know, like, so that there's no leaks or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're the guy that turns it on, it doesn't really help very much if you die along with whoever you're killing in it, right? Like, kind of defeats the purpose, right? Well, and I don't know if that's why I would like to meet more German people to ask them, like when I asked you if you were able to visit the concentration camp, because any of the pictures I've seen of the concentration camps, like the gas chambers, they look like high school shower rooms.
Yeah, that's. I don't know. I mean, you're right. I mean, that's the idea, right? You.
Like, I mean,
people, hey, have a
I mean,
shower,
really, in all actuality, though, whoever would have pulled the switch, right, to let the gas out, would have killed everybody in the building and in the camp. If you, You know, Cyclone. Do you know really what Cyclone B is really used for? Like what it does? It kills lice. It's really weird, dude. And I've just been learning over the last like year or so how deep a lot of these lies go, like 9/11.
Yeah. What did you find out about 9/11?
Well, if I asked you how many towers were destroyed on 9/11, how many would you say?
How many? Sorry, no.
Like how many towers were destroyed on 9/11?
Oh, we got I don't know, 2?
Yeah, see, you've never even heard of Tower 7.
No.
Yeah, there was a third tower called Tower 7, and it also was completely demolished from top to bottom, like falling down exactly the way the other 2 skyscrapers fell. And then, do you realize that there's only been 3 skyscrapers in all of history of skyscrapers that have completely collapsed due to fire damage? There's only been 3 in all of history. Like, what are the chances that all 3 of those buildings happened on the same day? And the official story is because of fire damage. Too many things don't make sense,
Yeah.
Or the fact that where the planes hit the towers, or where the destruction of the towers was the floors that were investigating a bunch of the financial stuff that was going on with
oh man.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, the part of the Pentagon that was hit, they were investigating what happened to the $1.2 trillion that Donald Rumsfeld came out the day before 9/11 and said that, we're missing it. Did you know about that?
No.
Yeah, the day before 9/11, Donald Rumsfeld actually got out on TV and said, well, we lost $1.something trillion. And then the area of the government that was investigating that all of a sudden gets hit by a plane. Okay. And I mean, like, those planes, we're told, burnt so hot that they melted those towers, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, didn't Al-Qaeda confess, or Bin Laden, or whatever? I mean, do you think it's all fabricated?
The fact that they confessed, well, when you look at how our government's the one that started Al-Qaeda and the Taliban and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so Al-Qaeda taking, not taking the blame, but taking the, ownership of the attacks, right?
Mm-hmm.
If they were created by the American government, then isn't that technically the American government also, like, taking credit for the attacks?
Yeah. But I mean, Al-Qaeda was created a long time before that, right? I mean, it sounds like, if anything,
Not a long
flying those
time.
planes Trade Center was a tactical maneuver in response to some very specific events.
It's actually a maneuver that pilots keep coming out and saying there is no way that those guys were able to do that. Especially without any, like maybe if they were trained in the military, like they were ex-Blue Angels or something like that, they might be able to pull it off. If they were like fighter pilot status people. But half a dozen normal Arab jackasses that took a couple flying classes the pilots are coming out saying there's those maneuvers that those planes pulled, way too hard.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, the planes melted the buildings, yet they found the hijacker's paper passport. So the fire was hot enough to burn the building down, but not burn this passport. Okay.
Oh man.
The Pentagon, right? They say that the plane melted, it burnt so hot, it melted the plane. That's why there was no footage of the plane, like, crashed in the Pentagon.
Yeah.
But when you go back, you can actually, like, check out the pictures that are taken, that are given to the news stations, and look at them, and the plane burnt so hot that it melted itself, but the computer and the book and the papers on the desk on the side of the hole where the plane hit are all there and intact and weren't burnt at all. Like, in one of the pictures, you can see a book sitting on a wooden stool. So a paper book and a wooden stool wouldn't catch fire when a plane is burning so hot that it could melt itself.
Yeah, that's bizarre.
That really doesn't add up at all. And that's just a small piece of the things that I've started noticing that really don't add up, you know? Have you ever been able to witness or seen, or can you think of any time you've seen water curve?
No.
Right? Like, when a lake freezes, what's the surface like? We turn them into skating rinks because they're so flat, right?
Yeah, exactly.
In a water bottle, in a cup, in a bathtub, in a puddle, the surface of the water always looks level, right?
Yeah.
Now, do you remember how much of the world is covered in water, though? Like, quite a bit. They tell us like 70-something %.
I think so, yeah, over 2/3.
Yeah. So that kind of baffles me how we can have 70% of something that's flat. Like, we can have something that's always seen as being flat and level, and we're told that the ball that we live on is covered 70% in this flat water. How can you have 70% of a ball that's flat and still call it a ball?
Yeah. Well, strictly speaking, I assume if the water is in a cup or on a lake or whatever, it still follows the curvature of the Earth. So Earth being a planet, the water isn't flat, right? It's just stuck to the surface.
Well, but that's my question, is if it is stuck to the surface like that, in a curved way, when a lake freezes over, shouldn't that curve also freeze?
And maybe it does. I mean, we don't know that, right? It's such a...
Well,
because the lake is such a small fraction of the Earth's surface, there's barely any...
Well, we actually have pretty good sized lakes. And if you've ever heard of, like, the salt flats, right? The salt flats are like 80 miles long. And they are completely flat. When it rains, it looks like a mirror. I suggest you look at the pictures if you ever get a chance. They're actually really gorgeous. But it's completely flat. Like, it's completely level, right? Or, like, let's say you were a land surveyor, right? And it was your job to survey the airport. Well, those surveyors that do that, they're told to treat their project like it's on a flat plane. Well, that works for that guy's project, yeah. But the guy that is down the street working on his project, if he treats his like it's flat, and then the guy over here on the side over here treats his like it's flat, that'd be like trying to glue crackers on a basketball. Right?
Maybe, yeah.
I mean, if everything you're surveying, and you're surveying it as flat, and this guy over here is surveying his as flat, at some point, if it is a ball, those two flat pieces, like this could be flat and that could be flat, but aren't they going to have an issue when they touch? But they don't. Everything lines up.
Yeah, I haven't really thought it through,
but it's, and earlier you mentioned something about gravity.
Mm-hmm.
Me and gravity have issues.
What's your issue with gravity?
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. I do believe that if I drop something, it will hit the ground. And I do know that if I jump off a building, I definitely will hit the ground.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it's what we're told as gravity. Because we're also told that Newton's the one that came up with gravity. Or he didn't like invent it, but he's the one that figured out the equation and everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a problem with that, though, because he's really not the guy that came up with the equation. I mean, he might have came up with the letters and stuff like that, but that equation for finding gravity, which is little f g equals big G times, or big G, times m1 plus m2 over the distance squared. That equation, the m1 and the m2, that's the mass of the Earth and the mass of the Sun, if you're trying to figure out the gravitation between the two.
Mm-hmm.
And the big G is the gravitational constant. Newton had no idea what the mass was or the gravitational constant. If you were to pull out your phone right now and ask it how to find the mass of something, it would actually bring up a guy by the name of Henry Cavendish.
Mm.
And it would say that you need to know what he did to find out the mass. Like, what he did helps you find out the mass. Okay. He's also the guy that came up with the gravitational constant, which isn't really very constant because every time it's measured, they come up with a different number.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't sound very constant to me. But, like, I mean, if he was working along side by side with Newton, then yeah, I wouldn't have a leg to stand on right now. But Mr. Cavendish wasn't around for almost 150 years after Newton. And this is like back in like the 1700s when we didn't have internet and stuff like that, where we have like a hall of records online where I can find stuff that was posted online from 1995 if I really wanted to. Like,
Yeah.
How are they sharing information in the 1700s like 150 years later? Like, I mean, Newton came along, came up with this equation, apparently couldn't solve any part of it, couldn't solve for anything in it, so I don't understand why anyone gives him any credit, because he really didn't do anything. I mean, some people try to tell me, well, he figured out that there was a relationship between the earth and the sun, and I'm like, well, duh, I can tell you there's a relationship.
Yeah.
And what's even stranger is how in school we're taught that Newton is like the end-all be-all when it comes to like gravity. But he actually wasn't, because his equation didn't solve for anything. And when I think about that, it's almost like, I don't know what kind of work you do or anything, but let's say you had some kind of job where you did a lot of math, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you needed to figure something out, and it had a couple variables in it. Well, you're only able to figure out one of the variables, and there's like 4 left in your equation that you weren't able to figure out and solve for.
Mm-hmm.
But you come to your boss and you're like, yeah, I finished my job. Like, this is done. Even though you're missing half the variables in it, he would tell you it's not done. If you walked into like a math teacher's class in college with an equation and you only solved for 2 out of 5 of the variables in the equation, and you told him that the equation was complete, he'd laugh you out of his room. So I don't understand why anyone's really taking Mr. Sir Isaac Newton serious, especially 150 years later. Because to what that looks like to me is that someone, even after both of those guys, saw that, hey, Newton has this, Cavendish did this, if we put them together, we can tell everybody that this happens.
Yeah.
So yeah, me and gravity have issues. Especially because it seems to be everyone's answer for everything. Like the gyroscopes in airplanes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with gyroscopes at all?
Not that much.
Well, your phone actually has a gyroscope in it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That's how it's also able to have a compass in it.
Oh, okay.
Like high-powered, like telescopes and stuff like that, they have gyroscopes in them. Airplanes, submarines, they all have gyroscopes. What a gyroscope essentially does is, when you start it up, that's its like beginning point, all right? That's where it knows it is.
Mm-hmm.
If you move either the gyroscope, because really the gyroscope usually doesn't move. What is measured is what moves around it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So, like an airplane, when it's on, it starts its gyroscope. The gyroscope tells it that's level.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really important because that actually controls their altimeter or whatever. The thing that tells them whether they're dipping down towards the ground or up towards the sky.
Mm-hmm.
It's what keeps them with a level flight. Well, talking about the curve of the Earth and all that, the curve of the Earth is 8 inches per mile, every mile times itself. Which means that, like, over 27 miles, there should be a distinct drop of like 360 feet. Now, with an airplane, if that airplane and that gyroscope is telling that airplane that it's level the whole time, and the Earth is curved, how long can that airplane fly before it's got to adjust, before it shoots off into space in a straight line? There's only so many miles. But the problem is that the pilot never has to adjust for that. The gyroscope and the altimeter, their artificial horizon, never says that they have to pull up or down on the stick to keep level. As soon as they set it level, they could set it on autopilot and go back and have a full-blown dinner in the back and not have to worry about a damn thing.
Yeah.
And when you bring this up to a lot of people, they go, oh, well, they don't have to adjust anything because of gravity. Well, that's kind of convenient, because so now they're trying to tell me that gravity is keeping it completely level. Like, they don't have to dip it down or dip it up. Like, that seems very, very fishy, you know? Because we're also told that gravity holds all this 70% of the Earth being covered in water. It's a lot of water. That's like trillions and trillions and trillions of tons of water or something like that. It's a trillion tons of water, alright? It's really heavy. So, gravity's holding all this water on the Earth so that it doesn't fly off into space. And at the same time, allows the little fishes and the little shrimps to swim around in that water. If that force was so great to hold the water to the Earth, I don't get how anything could actually be swimming in the water, you know? Because molecules are molecules, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, man, so many questions. I don't have the answers for you.
Oh, no, I figured you didn't. I just like to run it by everyone, man, just because you never know who you're talking to.
Yeah.
And you never know, like, you never know what they know, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm also a very big, firm believer in you don't know what you don't know.
Absolutely. So if you turn right here, it's the driveway up here.
It baffles me the way people walk around now.
I know, huh?
Like, she didn't look at all as she was crossing that driveway.
I know.
Personally, I'm usually afraid of the big metal vehicles traveling on the road.
Absolutely.
To not be looking, right?
I know, huh?
Alrighty, Hanno. Have yourself a good night, man.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the chat, boss.